Click for IB Biology, General Principles of Respiration, looking at the fermentation pathways. There's a PDF in the description below that you can use to annotate with your own notes, and a quiz for you to test your understandings. Anaerobic respiration, of course, is the idea of respiration performed with a lack of oxygen, with no oxygen, and of course this prevents the processes such as those that occur in the Krebs cycle and so forth. So we're pretty much restricted to variations on the process of glycolysis. Fungal cells, particularly the yeasts and many forms of bacteria, can break down glucose in a linear metabolic pathways similar to glycolysis, but the end product is not pyruvate but is ethanol, and this requires that a carbon is decarboxylation, the removal of a carbon, and this oxidation means that it's more efficient than the lactic pathway or glycolysis. It is, however, of course, linked to the reduction of ADP into ATP in that way. So there is more ATP production from fermentation than there is from the lactic pathway. Anaerobic organisms, or anaerobes, some of them can choose to use oxygen and go aerobic, as we've previously discussed, or they can choose not to do that and can do the fermentation pathway. So when there's no oxygen, they can switch to fermentation. This is called facultative anaerobes. So they can switch between one method and another, and a typical example of that would be Saccharomyces, the yeasts. There are, however, organisms in which they are obliged to carry out anaerobic respiration. These are called the obligate anaerobes. They find oxygen is actually toxic to them, and so they look for anaerobic conditions in which they can thrive and flourish. And an example of such obligate anaerobic organisms, as pictured here, are your gut bacteria. So the gut is a particularly anaerobic location, and there obligate anaerobic organisms thrive. So no choice but to be anaerobic. These ones have a choice depending upon the availability of oxygen. The link appearing below is a video which will look at the different efficiencies with different respiratory substrates. There's a link to the subscription button and back to the playlist so that you can look at this entire respiratory series.